I'm a gamer. Ever since I first received Pokemon Silver and a Game Boy Color, I've been absolutely enamored with the variety of worlds that video games offer escape into. I remember when I was 9, saving up my allowance all summer long to buy GameCube and Pokemon Coliseum and being greeted to this absolute banger of an intro and being launched into the world of 3D console gaming. Later on in high school, my parents bought my sister and I an Xbox 360, so you know I had to get that brand new heat. Call of Duty Black Ops, the original.
The numbers! The numbers are real.
They've always been real, Mason. This isn't a game.
I don't remember who got me into it or if it's just some game I picked up at some point, but there was a certain game that turned me from someone who loved video games into a capital G gamer.
War. War never changes.
This game changed what a game could be, could do, what a video game was for me. I had never played the original Fallout, so I had nothing to compare the branching dialogue options to, but Mario could never have this in-depth conversation with anyone. Up until this point, my most expansive open world experience had been Zelda Wind Waker, and while one of the greatest games ever made on so many levels, just doesn't offer the player freedom of the Wasteland. At some point, I wound up picking up probably the greatest game ever made, and I'm only barely exaggerating when I say that. Fallout New Vegas, and the rest was history. Sure, games came and went, but my ass was playing Fallout New Vegas, and despite playing that game actually for like 5 years, I've never beaten it. For years, I was more than content just playing and replaying my adventures through the Mojave and Capital Wasteland. But finally, 4 years after the release of Skyrim, Bethesda opened their vault doors to grace us with another romp through the radiation fields. By this point, I was working part-time at a grocery store bakery while going to college part-time and managed to scrounge up enough to buy a PS4 and a TV. I wound up going with the special Destiny 2 Star Map 1 to go with what I was assured to be the greatest game ever made. No Man's Sky, which I heard they fixed, but fuck was that game exhausting. I just wanted to be a swarthy space pirate flying around just fucking with people. But what I got was a grindy survival game with superficial variety and the same resources everywhere, which was great because you always need more fucking resources. I dropped No Man's Sky almost immediately, despite having such high hopes for it. But it wasn't entirely the game's fault. I had been hit with my first real wave of debilitating depression and was doing worse and worse in classes, which doubly sucked now that I was paying an arm and a leg for those classes that I was failing. When I wasn't at school, I was at work, and when work was over, I was reading and doing homework just to go to bed and do it all over again. There was never a second to breathe. And while yes, I get that that's something that everyone has to deal with to some degree, I don't know, dude. I couldn't hack it, and I began to shut down. I would get home at 9:30 after getting up at 5:30 to go to school, and I would try to do my homework, but my mind would just start wandering to when's the next day I can actually take off. And I realized I had no idea, and something just broke, and I couldn't get out of bed. Just like playing No Man's Sky, I was getting completely overwhelmed with the cycle of getting resources just to get more resources in the future. But unlike the game, I couldn't put my life's controller down. This was the worst point of my mental health ever. I felt like I was getting caught in life's riptide, getting pulled out to sea with no life preserver. A friend from high school had recently horribly died. I was going through an awful breakup, and I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. I still am, to some degree. But I had video games. I had these worlds I knew like the back of my hand, so I would return home from a day out in a confusing, busy, noisy world to a world that I knew, a safe world, a world I specifically knew how to thrive in. Fallout 4 was dropped right in the middle of this tumultuous mental period, and it quickly became the world that I wanted to inhabit. It had a simple loop, but a good one. A loop that made sense to me. Something I could get lost in when my loop became too much to handle. For years, I tried to get lost in a digital Boston, and while I do regret how some of that time was spent, the mental relief and the lessons I've learned from video games have helped shape the person I've become. Life is a series of cycles, ebbs and flows. These cycles can wear away a person, or they can knit together to create a stronger unison in how they loop together. In a lot of ways, I've learned a lot from the game loop. The game loop is essential for capturing someone's attention and making the game worth playing. It's the essential structure of what a game is. Some loops are simple, like match the following blocks to cancel out a row, or more complicated, like take a battle companion to fight enemies, then capture said enemies. Train your companions to become stronger to take on stronger enemies. The stronger enemy you take down, the more rewards you get, incentivizing progression. No matter the game of it exists in the mechanical possibilities of how you can interact with the world, overlaid with pretty visuals and hopefully a good story justifying doing whatever you're doing. Recently, there's been a rise of open world to large map area games where the entire objective pretty much breaks down to explore, fight, scav, build, repeat. You go out in search of rare resources, and usually, depending on the game, there are AI enemies or actual players there already interacting with said resources or just there to fuck with you. And you must fight to survive and bring home the resources to build your base further or upgrade your weapons to make further fights and exploration easier. Lately, I've been replaying Fallout 3, mostly because my graphics card's been shitting out on me, and it's hard not to notice the vibes are remarkably different than Fallout 4. Fallout 3 was a paradigm shift for me. I was that 101 resident seeing the sun for the first time. Returning to it now, it feels familiar, comfortable, like jumping back into the car that you learned to drive in. I'm having fun with it, trying to role play with the dialogue options and what little choices I have, and it's fun. But it is a different game than Fallout 4. In Fallout 3, I know every secret weapons cache. I know where all the legendary weapons are. Like, for example, like I knew how to get a Chinese assault rifle within the first 5 minutes by getting Lucas Sims killed, because, I mean, ACAB includes him, and his rifle's gonna come in handy. Besides, his kid's fine. I mean, he gave me a fucking house. His kid's fine. In Fallout 4, though, I am combing every standing structure for every ounce of steel, screws, and concrete I can find to keep building out my base and upgrading my weapons. And then I'm going out in search of large enemy arenas to try to find legendary enemies to get legendary weapons, because the random generator just keeps giving them to me. I kept trying to finish the story, but I keep losing interest. I'm sorry, but Bethesda's good at building worlds, not telling stories. I'm sorry, Todd, but I don't give a shit about finding Sean or the Institute. I don't care. I just want to explore the Commonwealth, fight in Scav. I even left the Minutemen in the fucking museum, dude. I always hear complaints about Fallout 4's settlement system, and I get that Fallout fans don't want Minecraft in their Fallout. It makes sense. I really think Fallout 4 shot itself in the foot by having introduced a admittedly frustrating building management system akin to 2009 Roblox by Preston Garvey, and then he keeps shoving it down your fucking throat. It's fun, y'all. I promise. I personally think Fallout 4 is the most amount of fun on survival mode. Go grab a combat rifle and get you a set of power armor and get out there, kiddo. Immediately you're going to realize that you need a good source of clean water and food all the time, as well as a place to store your shit, because Fallout 4's random generator will leave you with a weapons hoard Gaddafi would be jealous of. The best way to deal with this is just build a house on one of the settlements. My personal favorite is the Tappington Boat House. But quickly you realize as you play the game and play more missions, go on further scav runs, that it makes more sense to just have a network of settlements all over the map. On my old save, I had walled fortresses on every single one. I could think of a creative way to do it. The rest I just left barren so I wouldn't have to come back and constantly defend them. I've always said Fallout 4 isn't a good Fallout game or even a good RPG, but it is a fantastic apocalyptic looter shooter that you can go on powering up and continuing your wealth forever. It's kind of how neoliberals think the world actually works. But while my game character is growing infinitely wealthy and becoming the leader of an ever-growing community, I myself have essentially been spinning my wheels for years. All my time and experience in the game world means nothing to the Dow Jones. Okay. Life is a series of loops, ebbs and flows, cycles that follow you through your life. For most of us when we're young, it's a pretty simple loop of waking up, going to school, doing your homework, then just being a kid and learning how to experience the world. As soon as we leave that school cycle, though, things become a lot more complicated as we add more layers of taxes, working, maintaining transportation, socializing, and the multitudes of other nodes that you'll be adding to the loops that comprise your life. Originally, I had thought my trajectory was on some kind of music track, and while I was wildly wrong, I opted for not going to college and wound up getting a job while I wrote music with my band. With that job, I got a taste for having some of my own money, and for the first time in my life, I was able to buy things I actually wanted. I bought myself a copy of GTA 5 for the 360 like 4 days after release, my very first paycheck, and with that, entered into the longest loop I've been able to hold on to. Work, get home, get stoned or drunk, game, fall asleep, and anything else my executive function can squeeze in is a bonus. After I dropped out of college, I felt my world shrinking. I had cut off contact with all the people I used to hang out with. I had lost the motivation to do all the things I loved. I just felt like the loop of my life was constricting around my neck and I didn't know what to do. Ever since I started working, I felt the call of the loop to just give into routine and fall into the job, lose track of days, just get the thing done in front of you and move on to the next task that your manager gave you, and never have a thought motivated by the world around you. There have been so many times I've just wanted to fall into that abyss, to just wake up in 40 years of middle management in a small apartment with a lifetime of beer bottles and missed opportunities behind me, but I've never taken that full step. I have always tried to maintain that last little spark, that youthful, illogical fervor to do something stupid and spontaneous just because you're alive and there in that moment. But so much of that energy has been spent just trying to trudge forward for a decade. I'm tired. I'm fucking exhausted. I'm tired in a way no sleep could remedy. I'm hungry for something no meal could satiate. And I'm left looking at my life, working for the market, making some intangible line rise, making everyone above me money while they float down scraps. I've had a real impact on people and companies that have real stakes in the state. All the while I've been worked to the bone and been paid calculable fractions of the value I've made, and I am nowhere close to any semblance of stability. I have no infrastructure, I have no savings, I have no 401k, and the only way out that I can see is working 60 to 80 hours for the next decade and having no joy in my life whatsoever, which is normal for a lot of people, maybe most, in fact. I don't know. Maybe I am just selfish by not wanting to waste my life away by working for someone else. But I don't know, dude. I don't believe that's all there is. That can't be all there is. Settlements fucking rule, y'all. You're just wrong. I do get the Minecraft comparison a little, but what's always bugged me about Minecraft's building system is just the inherent artificiality of it. I would spend days building all these fantastic buildings and towns and a complex network of roads connecting them just to find myself wandering them alone, which obviously gets boring quickly, so I would go find a village to go settle, or really settle into a town with walls that I would have to defend from the mobs that were realistically only spawning in because of my being there. Just like Dan Olson from Folding Ideas said fucking years ago now, any interaction with the Minecraft villagers has echoes of colonialism baked into it. Your presence has a direct and usually negative impact on the villagers that would have been absolutely fine if you would have never rendered them into reality in the first place. The settlements in Fallout are different though. Even if you just see a settlement way off in the distance and never interact with them, they can still absolutely be hit with random raider or super mutant spawns. Like, I have absolutely seen random NPCs just being slaughtered off in the distance with absolutely no way for me to help them. Many settlements when you first get there are just a dilapidated house or a flat patch of dirt, but the more you invest in water, housing, and food infrastructure, the more the game will reward you with settlers, traders, and random events spawning near your base. While my Minecraft villages usually ended in disaster and ghost towns because of my actions, my Fallout community spread across the wasteland, so I saw friendly faces wherever I went. These NPCs would be caravanning supplies from settlement to settlement, and if you set things up right, money becomes absolutely no object. There are a couple places that you can just load up with water purifiers, and if you just head out on a scrap run or actual mission, by the time you get back, you're left with like 100 to 200 purified waters to sell at any vendor, including the vendors in your settlement. Through building a home and with it a community, you can create a map-spanning network of people and places trading resources that creates more wealth than the game can account for. Like, Borball the Bomber has more caps than Jeff Bezos. The settlements are an intrinsic part to this game loop. You'll get a mission from one of the settlers to go clear out a train station or some shit, and along the way you'll scav like 30 pounds of steel and adhesive to keep building out your base and upgrading your weapons so you can keep going out and fighting and getting more, and you get the idea. This is a huge piece that I realized I was missing in Fallout 3 in New Vegas, because while yeah, you got houses like Megaton or the Atomic Wrangler, they're little more than just rooms to keep your weapons and sleep in. Fallout 4 made settlements a key element to thrive in the wasteland like never before. While the map is chock full of raiders, ghouls, super mutants, deathclaws, and a plethora of other shit that's gonna kill ya, the world seems significantly less hostile to the player than previous Fallout titles. Any challenge that you face is absolutely surmountable. Any roadblock has the tools to solve it well within reach and excessively abundant. Every single time my character faced a challenge I thought was impossible, he always seemed to manage to make it home. With previous Fallout titles, especially on autosave only runs, it is incredibly easy to soft lock your game by entering a room with an enemy way too leveled or just turning the corner and running into 8 cazadors with no explosive rounds. The game could, and with a little Bethesda magic, absolutely would catastrophically fail, and you had to either load an old save or, in some of the worst cases, completely restart your game. Despite that, these games have always been power fantasies. Even when harsh and difficult, these worlds were built for you to succeed in. There are systems in place to make you feel like the hardest badass in the wastes. Even when hit with a roadblock, the steps to attain that power, influence, or money are clear and attainable. Even the most punishing of games will reward the players with at least a little something by mid-game to make them keep playing, to give them a sense of accomplishment, make them feel like they actually did something. 12 years. I'm 30 this year, so it's officially been 12 years of working. And what do I have from it? I haven't been able to afford going to the doctor after paying for insurance, so I haven't been to the doctor in a decade. And if something's wrong, I don't know how I'm gonna pay for that. All that stress ain't good for my heart or hairline, which just compounds on top of that problem. And the way out? Dude, that's a good fucking question. For years, I've just been a happy little camper, putting out the little fires, but after a decade, dude, I think I'm just burned out. I'm falling apart. I don't have much left in the tank, and I'm not even middle-aged. I can't imagine another decade of this, and I have it good. I'm constantly in pain. I'm constantly stressed about money. I am constantly exhausted. I've been in the weed industry for years, just circling that drain, because I do believe it has actually benefited people living with chronic pain, insomnia, and other chronic issues, but the corporations and the governmental regulatory bodies have turned a business with real beneficial potential into just another industry full of cheap thrills bullshit. I have raised multiple stores. I have seen the rise and fall of multi-million-dollar companies, and I can see my fingerprints on some real shit in Oregon, but I'm still stuck doing the same shit I've been doing for years. I'm stuck having too much manager experience on my resume to just jump into a new entry-level career, but not enough GM experience to do anything in management. I am simultaneously underqualified and overqualified. I'm really good at selling weed. I'm so lucky to be working at a boutique dispensary where my connoisseur cannabis knowledge can just shine. But I'm still left feeling unfulfilled. I'm unhappy in what should be a dream job. There's never enough money. There's never enough time. There's never enough hours in the day to make it all work. And I'm left feeling like I'm sprinting to catch up to a future that just gets further and further away. I burn out easily. Why do you think I haven't uploaded in forever? I'm getting burnt out of working, so trying to write something clever or insightful while being just fucked mentally is kind of hard. I want to be a creator in whatever form that takes. Right now, video essays are kind of fun, so let's see how good I can get at these, but I am a long way off from making any kind of money off this, let alone living off of my creativity. I'd like to think I could use my brain to make something of quality, but every attempt I've tried, I either run out of money and food or the project gets shot down before it even gets off the ground. I'm 30 this year. How much longer do I try to live the delusion that I can make art, that I can create something and live off of that I can do something to open someone's eyes to some corporate bullshit and make some effort at change? How much longer until I just accept that I am just another worker ant and I need to just get along with the program because it's gonna keep on churning with or without me? But that complacency is how we got here today. You play the games you love long enough, eventually you're going to reach a point where the enemies aren't getting any stronger the further out you venture. I always feel the need to push these worlds to their absolute limit. And some games, like Fallout 3, will just be like, nope, and hit you with the accursed invisible wall. But some games, like Fallout New Vegas, just reward that sense of deeper exploration. I love marching to the furthest corners of the map and realizing the rock bends in a weird kind of way, and finding myself in a caldera full of cazadors, or just this weird little island off the Colorado where it's just full of nothing but death claws. No plot reason for it being there. Just bring your 50 BMG and good luck, Cheeto. But you don't need that luck. You got 1,500 AP rounds, the All-American and the Lonesome Road armor. You're not even gonna break a sweat on an island full of death claws. Fallout 4 gets even more wacky with the limitless leveling and the randomized legendary weapons. Like, you want a rifle that does double the damage on every follow-up shot? The problem solver just rips through anything before you even register it's there. You want a shotgun that explodes with every buckshot pellet? I've seen it. You want to just vaporize anything? Two-shot Gauss rifles, like the Raider was never there. It doesn't feel fair. This is levels of power Alexander the Great couldn't even fathom, and my domain was just as powerful. A Commonwealth spanning caravan between heavily fortified settlements, hundreds of people, hundreds of thousands of caps, a place to sleep anywhere I went, and a complete mastery over my world. But by then, it was over, and I had pretty much seen all the Commonwealth had to show me. Sure, I can blow holes in the biggest, baddest legendary creatures, but when it's the 100th giant legendary alpha Deathclaw you've one-shotted this week, even that becomes stale. Everything levels with you, and places do respawn, so you can farm like Souls-like with some challenge, but there's really nothing ever that gives you trouble. There got to a point I started clearing endgame locations just for something novel. Sure, I could have restarted the game, but this was a run I was years into. Thousands of hours run into the pre-rendered ground. A power fantasy is only as good as its limits, and while breaking the game sometimes is a lot of fun, I really found Cyberpunk's updated combat system where you couldn't upgrade and mod a character more than a certain amount before succumbing to cyberpsychosis to be a lot more rewarding than the Vault Dweller out of time that becomes the god of the Commonwealth before level 40. By this point, my PS4 was struggling to handle all the data it had to load just to play. It was crashing to an unplayable amount, like Fallout New Vegas amount. I had just accumulated too much stuff for the game to handle. The game loop had literally broke the game. I keep coming back to the cannabis industry for its potential, not for how it's doing today, but I just keep getting burned. But in 2022, I did take a break from the cannabis industry to take up canvassing for some local elections, and just, let me tell you, just being around other political wonks and union organizers for the first time was just a huge, monumental uplift to my mental health and political awareness. I try to stay current and look at everything through a leftist, socialist, anarchist lens, but simply just being around people who fully understood what I was talking about and wanted to engage with the topics I was interested in for literally the first time in my life was thrilling. For the first time, it felt like I was finally meeting my people, people who made as many references to Twitch as to local politics, who actually spoke my language. We took the RADS test together, we worked on each other's canvassing speeches to better relate to our fellow voters. It was my dream job, for sure. Like, don't get me wrong, there were some really hard days, for sure, like extreme heat, extreme cold and rain, many, many long days, and many miles on our feet. There were so many days that I just went home and sobbed because of the emotional toll, but through it all, I met some of the most incredible, community-minded, politically oriented people I've ever met in my life, and I cherish that time dearly. In that work, I not only had a tangible, direct effect on the general election, but I forged real friendships that I still try to keep up with today. That Cyberpunk TTRPG game is still happening, guys. I promise. I'm still just looking for a DM. I finally found people who believed in and wanted to build a better world, and that was exciting, like you wouldn't believe. I found community in this group, and for the first time, I wanted to build the infrastructure to be a better friend, a better community member, to be an active participant. I loved the game loop in Fallout 4 because the more you engaged with the world and invested in your community, the more the world provided to you. And for the first time, it felt like that was happening in real life. But like all good things, the election ended and we all went back to our real jobs, and we've been too busy to hang out even once. I'm back selling weed again. I do love it, but it is more of a mental struggle this time. After learning to unmask and feel more comfortable in my own skin, it's been really hard to learn how to remask a little, to try to be a more pleasant, less edgy version of myself. The more I mask, the more tired I am when I get home, and the more I want to just fall into familiar routines, and the less I want to try to improve myself and my situation. I find myself missing the grueling days of canvassing, or even the perilous nights of 2020, where, while sure, I was facing nearly impossible odds every single day, I was surrounded by and supported by community. In a world where individualism has been sold to us at the cost of our autonomy, as individuals, the only way out is through community. We got us. That's what hopefully this is, not just a soapbox or a stage, but a whole fucking theater for an entire community to engage with. Not just my channel, not just LeftTube or RedTube or Video Essay Tube or fucking whatever, We don't do incredible things by competing with or getting one over or any of the other shit. No. All of the amazing things, and there has been amazing things done, that it's all happened because of community effort on behalf of big creators, small creators, mods, and audience alike. I sometimes wonder about the utility of making vaguely political videos like this. If saying build stronger community networks is political or radical at all, which it shouldn't be. But I think even attempting to reach out and build community, trying to branch out your networks to build a better world, even a little bit, is worth it. Reaching out and being a good community member has always been really hard for me, good old ADHD. And I guess this is just my version of, look at this cool rock I found, please be my friend. Except my cool rock is I was really depressed and video games helped, or look at this company, they should be hit with fucking fraud charges. I don't know, dude. This is just my way of trying to reach out to something. I love video games. Have I made that clear enough yet? Should I maybe set a timer on how long I play? Yeah, that's probably a good idea, seeing the years I spent playing that I could have at least been listening to an audiobook while doing that, but live and learn. Even writing this script has taken longer than expected, and this isn't even anything I've needed to seek sources for because I've been gaming. When I have a bad day at work, I don't want to come home and write a paragraph from an outline. I want to solve this goddamn murder. What's worse still is I figured out the issue with my graphics card. I literally needed to just type a line into a new folder in my Regedit and we are 99% good to go. So, I've been busy. This time it feels different. I'm playing too much to be sure, but it's not the days I wouldn't move like years before. I was severely depressed. I had been for a while, but escaping into a world didn't solve my problems. What it did do, though, was give me a chance to rest. I don't think I've realized how much I've been masking my entire life. So, just dropping the mask even this little bit has made me realize how fucking heavy it is. Even dropping it this much has freed up the strength to not only write more, but has given me the sense I have a handle on things enough to start making the art that I want, finding the community that wants me, and maybe finally finding a place that I make sense in. I've always been the weird one, the problem one, the one that can get intense, so it's made me want to just see how far I can get on my own, and it's not very far. And Fallout fucking 4, Todd Howard's dream child, made me see how wrong I was. No matter how strong, how skilled, how smart you are nothing compared to what you can achieve through community. Community is strength through compassion and empathy. It is a strength no one person can ever achieve on their own. We may not all agree on details and minutiae, and we can hash those out and deal with it later, but as long as we all agree that we are striving for a world based on compassion and empathy, we are better together. My dad and I were talking the last time we went snowboarding together, and he asked if I was proud of the things that I've accomplished in the last decade, and I had to answer no. While everything was done with the best of intentions, at least one thing went sour with everything. The only thing I don't regret is building relationships and community with the people that I've worked with and met. I've met some of the most interesting people this planet has to offer. I have learned some lessons I will definitely take with me for my entire life. And through it all, no matter what job I'm doing, no matter what role I'm playing, the people, the friends, the community are the things I remember the most.